There are many places to buy Bitcoin. They collect your personal information and jeopardize your privacy. KYC is the illicit activity. BISC is open source. It does not collect user data. You keep your private keys, create or take offers to trade peer-to-peer, and keep your Bitcoin private and secure. Create or take offers to trade peer-to-peer.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? We are back with another installment of the OC Bitcoin Network's series on Bitcoin full nodes, what they are, why they matter, and what some different options are if you are interested in running one yourself. I'm Steven. We've got some of the other members of the OC Bitcoin Network crew here with us as well, Brian and Zelko. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Going good.
Sweet. And our two guests of honor today, we've got Taylor from the MyNode project and Kitan from Ministry of Nodes. How's it going, guys?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing well. So today's focus is going to be all about MyNode and kind of how that fits in to the ecosystem of options for people interested in running their Bitcoin full nodes. Super cool to have both of you guys here to share some knowledge and info with us. Figured a cool place to start would just be with maybe both of you giving introductions, and I know you are both involved in the project, but in different capacities. So obviously, Taylor, you're running the MyNode project, and then Kitan running Ministry of Nodes, which MyNode is heavily involved in, kind of as a component oftentimes. So maybe if you can give a little bit of background about both the organizations you're involved in and how MyNode fits into that.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be on and great to be talking with you guys. I'm the founder of MyNode. I started the project maybe, let's see, it was probably early-ish 2019, kind of in the March timeframe. And it started, just as me tinkering around, and I was like, wow, this Lightning, I've been not involved, but I've been interested in Bitcoin for a while, and, Lightning was kind of new and exciting. I wanted to build my own Lightning node, just kind of see what it was and play with it and kind of have a hands-on experience. And so I tinkered for a while, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I started adding more and more things. And then I found other content and guides on how to pull in more and more projects. And I thought, wow, maybe I can share this. And so I started turning it into something that I could distribute and package and share with other people. And then I kind of turned it into a small company to help provide support and provide some other premium features and just kind of help support continuing the project. And so it's grown probably larger than I had expected initially when I was just kind of, tinkering on my own Raspberry Pi, playing around with it. And then, other people like Kitan has been great. The community has just been awesome to see it grow from, one person just kind of working on their own node to the community involvement around creating guides and video tutorials and getting pull requests on the project and just hearing the feedback from everybody. It's been a really awesome experience.
Yeah, that's cool. It seems like it's come such a long way in that amount of time. It's definitely one of the prominent options that I hear about all the time when it comes to running a node. So very cool. Kitan, want to talk a little bit about Ministry Nodes?
Hello, everyone. My name's Kitan. I'm the co-founder of Ministry of Nodes, and we basically exist to provide Bitcoin-related educational content. Specifically, we do articles, video guides, we do workshops, and we also do one-on-one coaching sessions for those who want that level of assistance. I've been doing this for about a year in my spare time. I also have a full-time job, a full-time fiat job. So that's just kind of me in a nutshell. That keeps me busy. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
For sure. Thanks for being here. And as a footnote to this, I'll say that, our goal with these OC Bitcoin full node events is to give everybody a deep dive into the project. But when it comes to actually going for it in their unique situation, I would highly recommend the content that you all are putting out at Ministry of Node. I've watched a few of your YouTube videos. It seems great. You guys seem like a very balanced, trusted source of info. So anyone watching who wants to do this stuff and needs help, good source. Cool. So maybe a cool place to kind of go from there is just a summary of, like, with the MyNode project, an overview of kind of what it is and who it's for in pretty broad terms.
Yeah, so let me start with who it's for. So something I realized a while ago in, like, I guess in most open source communities, but especially in the Bitcoin like open source software development community, is there is a ton of just fantastic software that's been built. Like everything from, like, Bitcoin Core itself is obviously awesome, but like we're starting to get into second layer solutions like Lightning, and there's other projects like Electrum and the Electrum wallets and being able to run your own server, as well as a ton of like fantastic Lightning wallets and things like that. And the quality of the software is all really, really good. But what seems to be missing sometimes is getting it to end users. Like, it might be great that you can have a project that you can spin up on your own desktop, but it takes some like actual engineering background or a computer science background, which I know a decent amount of people in the community have. But to really expand it to like the larger audience and the larger, the entire Bitcoin community, you know, there needs to be an easier way for people to get their hands on that software. And so that's kind of really what I wanted to provide. I have a computer science background, and so and I mean, it can be difficult. Like, it can actually be hard to get some of these projects to like integrate and work perfectly and package them all up so that you have a better user experience than you would having to set it up yourself. And so that's sort of the target audience. It's people who already kind of like Bitcoin and know what it is, but want to have a more hands-on experience with all of the software and the projects that are out there. And so that's when I kind of started MyNode with, I guess there were 3 target projects, and I still consider those like the 3 sort of most critical, and then it builds on top of that. So the 3 critical ones I still view as Bitcoin itself, Electrum server, because that just enables so many people to securely run their own like Bitcoin wallet without having to have, they can securely run a light wallet, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Like, you're not trusting, you're still running a light wallet. You can run it on your phone. You can run it on a couple computers in your house or whatever, but it's trusted, but you don't need individual copies of the blockchain on all your devices. So it's a way to reuse that one copy of Bitcoin and the blockchain across all your devices, and maybe with friends and family. So you don't need everybody having to download all that, because you can sort of trust each other within that small community. The second is Lightning. I think it's going to get more important as the Bitcoin price increases, as on-chain prices increase. I think more people are going to be using Lightning for small transactions if those end up taking off, or even for just making small transfers, because eventually most people probably won't have large chunks of a Bitcoin. Even you might have smaller fractions for most people, which can be more easily broken up and transferred between each other on the Lightning network. And then I guess that was all 3. Bitcoin, Lightning, and Electrum are sort of the 3 critical ones. But then that has sort of expanded into other things, other ways to run Lightning, like LND Hub and Blue Wallet and things like that, as well as like your own Bitcoin Explorer, which a lot of people have liked. And then also expanding into like coin joins and some other like sort of security privacy type applications for mixing your coins and things like that. So there's just been, I mean, there's a whole lot of different projects now that are all kind of related. And I started with those 3, but it really does seem to keep expanding into more and more projects that really seem like they would make sense on a device or on a software stack like MyNode.
Nice. And the stack is software, like MyNode, right, is software only, right? There isn't sort of a hardware component inherently to it. I'm sure there are like system requirements and specs that you give out, but it's not a hardware device per se, right?
Right. Well, I would kind of view it sort of as both. I mean, primarily it is a software stack. You're right. like you can go look at like the GitHub project for it and go download it yourself and play with it. It is targeted to a number of different projects. Most people end up using a Raspberry Pi 4. You can also, from MyNode, buy a prepackaged Raspberry Pi 4 with a hard drive or solid state drive, and then kind of go that route. That would be the easiest route for onboarding. You can make that purchase. You can get a pre-built device shipped to you. The software is already loaded, or you can definitely like build your own, download one of our images or download the source code yourself and kind of build it up yourself for free without having to pay any money.
Very cool. What's the form factor? Like when we talk about Raspberry Pis, just for people listening who have like no experience with that, I guess if they have like a gaming PC, desktop PC,
Right.
or even laptop, then in theory they could download the stack and run it there. But if they wanted to buy Raspberry Pis, like the Raspberry Pi 4, then those are typically like that type of form factor, right? Pretty small box.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got one right here. It's pretty
Perfect.
small, right? Like it's I don't know, maybe like 2.5 inches by 3 inches or something like that, 3 or 4 inches. It's a pretty small device. And then off of this, there's an attached hard drive that's a similar size. So that's kind of what you'd be looking at if you purchase one or want to build your own. There also is a MyNode virtual machine image for slightly more advanced users. And I know Katan has a video on setting that up specifically, but it's a cool way to be able to run the MyNode software stack on your own PC, where you might have, like if you do leave your PC on all the time or you have a server somewhere, some people do, and they can run MyNode on a sort of a larger, higher end device without needing a separate physical thing.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, because and I'll just jump on. Yeah, I mean, like, and I think this is why, and you see this with pretty much all the node stacks, is once we realized how important it was to keep a computer running, you know, you wanted this stuff to be running 24/7, right? And you wanted something low power. And that's where, you know, the Raspberry Pi, you know, even before, obviously before the 4, everyone was using a 3. I wouldn't say everyone. I would say with the 4, it really blew up. And yeah, like everyone's kind of in the Bitcoin community is acknowledged, at least, like who is running full nodes, that you're either going to be doing it on a virtual machine or you're doing it on a single board computer. Whether that's, you know, Rock Pro 64, Raspberry Pi 4, a Rock Pi 4, whatever it is, you know, and that's where it starts to get challenging for people like Taylor and, you know, with us over at Ronin. It's like there's so many different like platforms that people want, like actually want to run this stuff on. But really, you want that dedicated device that's going to be running, so that you don't have to, you know, like certain community members talk about like syncing up their node once a week on their laptop. Like that's stupid. You would rather just keep it running so that you can use your Bitcoin wallet anytime, anywhere, however you want to do it. You don't have to wait for blocks to be syncing up.
And you can also share. And so you can also share it. So like in this particular instance, if you've got family members in the household, you can share that one Raspberry Pi amongst maybe 4 individuals who can then use that rather than them having them each segregated on their own laptops. So I think that's an advantage as well.
Yeah, who's that? Uncle Jerry? What do we call him?
Uncle Jim.
Uncle Jim. Yeah, there we go.
Uncle Jim, my bad. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Stephen or Stefan. He'll be mad at me later.
On that note, actually, I'm pretty curious about that notion of like you can set this up and you can share your full node, your MyNode instance with multiple people. So when you guys think about the future of, you know, everybody in the world running their own full node, or on the other end of the spectrum is like a few big centralized megacorps run their full nodes, or maybe there's something in between where it's like Uncle Jim's for a trusted social circle. Is that kind of how you see the future playing out? Or
I'll give my thought, and then I definitely want to hear Taylor and Katan's. But I think you're going to get a lot of everything. Like I don't think there's one particular solution, and I think it comes down to like people's level of trust that they have with the big server, right? So it's like I'll just use Samurai Wallet because obviously like that's my thing, right? So some people have no issue whatsoever with trusting Samurai Wallet server. they just don't care. Like they're like, whatever, I trust it, and that's good enough for them. And then you have other people that they want to run just their node for just their stuff. They don't want to share it with their friends or family, and that's totally cool too. So I think like, yeah, I see a future where you have different levels of like nodes. Like you're gonna have people that just run it for just their household, you know, and then you're gonna have people that run it for like, you know, maybe they run it for their school or they run it for like whatever, a larger community. And then you're still gonna have these big, massive servers that run nodes and that people are just gonna use with a light wallet, and just like we do right now. I mean, it's not that different. That's what I
Makes
see.
sense.
But I'm curious what Taylor and Catan think.
Obviously, I don't really have a crystal ball as to what, you know, what might proliferate in the future, but I do think that what I would like to see is every router, any place that has a router should have a Bitcoin node next to it. That's what I would like to see. That would really keep things decentralized for the household, and I think that because that's the economic unit, right? That's not, you know, like, that's what I think is the single family unit, and so that's why I think I would like to see that every router or every home or someone in the family can run a Bitcoin node. That's what I would like to see. That's what I am trying to push towards with the content that I put out. However, whether that happens in reality, and it may not, with, you know, digital nomads running around. The way that we work right now is completely changing. So who knows? But I would like to see a family unit run its own Bitcoin node. Whether that happens, I hope.
I dig that.
So I would agree with both of you. I think that the most economic place to put a node is sort of one per household. I also think there are going to be a lot of people who don't care, and I think the people who don't care right now are, I think mostly. So well, okay, maybe a better way to phrase it is, I don't know if the vast majority of MyNode users do it just because they really want like their own trusted copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. Because if they wanted that, they could have downloaded Bitcoin Core, and cool, they have their own copy, right? I actually think most people are going to be attracted to that kind of solution. Like you have to almost entice them. And I think most users jump onto MyNode because of the amount of different projects they have access to, that all build on top of that Bitcoin blockchain. It's not just that they have their own trusted node. I think it's the trusted node plus, and it's the fact that there's an Electrum server and all the other things I mentioned, like BTC Pay server, LND Hub, LND Connect for linking wallets, the mempool viewer, which is really popular because it looks super awesome. Dojo, Whirlpool, LNbits, Caravan, like all that kind of stuff, right? Like I think a lot of people are interested in the amount of stuff they can do with their Bitcoin, or the amount of stuff the tools they have to like analyze the blockchain and look at it and run their own Explorer and things like that. So I think a lot of it is sort of the enticement of the other features as well.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have really good support for like such a wide variety of apps.
Thanks. Thanks.
And it's all kind of presented and usable in a GUI, right? Like I know I've seen a lot of images. There's a lot of emphasis on the web GUI experience. Would you say that in order to set up or operate MyNode, you need some or any command line expertise, or is it pretty web UI driven?
I mean, I would say it's targeted to be web and UI driven. However, people do run into problems, and sometimes it requires some command line expertise, or at least someone suggesting different commands to run to go get more information. But the goal is that it's really completely driven by the web-based user interface. But I'm not going to say like you only ever have to touch that, right? Like it is still early. Sometimes people run into problems, you know, or even just they have questions about what they want to do, and to kind of give them an answer, you know, you have to get into the command line and look at logs or look at messages or whatever's going on back there. But I have tried to make that even easier. I've tried to bring a lot of those logs to the front end. So there's like a status page and a settings page where you can go look at a lot of that information and try and get like the critical things that you might have questions for from the web UI without requiring a customer to have to go in and do the command line themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of products in this space, right, are pretty raw.
Lost him. Do you guys lose him?
Lose them? Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree with everything you're saying about the so number one, cool about not having the emphasis on command line, and I love everything you said about the apps. Like I agree. I think that's a huge drawing point to like other people. Like, and that's what I started to arrive at, was that I think people really are like looking for ways to get involved. Like they're like, what do you want me to do? And I think the fastest amount of ground I think the most amount of ground and the fastest amount of time can be covered with people that are withdrawing from exchanges, and just want to know what that next step is. Like, and that's, I think both of you are doing a great job of like helping those people. I think they just need a little nudge of just what hardware is right and what software is right. And I also think you just did a great job of explaining how I used to lump like Electrum, BTC Pay, like Node software, LND, all that stuff into kind of the same thing, and be just kind of like frustrated at like Bitcoin, but like as soon as you realize that like each of those are like different software that allow you to do different things with Bitcoin, and you start to like, and that's for the audience. Just if you're frustrated, switch what wallet you're using. Like switch which wallet you're using, or try a different exchange, or if you have tried to download Core before in the past on a desktop, like really like engage our series and think about like what other node implementation you can use. Like that has helped me a lot in me thinking about Bitcoin, is just switching wallets, switching exchanges, and trying a few of these different things. And don't let a bummer experience with any one thing kind of cloud your vision of the other options. So I think that's what's cool. I'm enjoying hearing people talk about each software element as its own thing. And that's helping me like put together my own personal stack of what my flow day to day is. And I think that's what people are ready for. I think people know what money is. People know hard money versus soft money. People have everything down. We've all listened to podcasts. We've got everything down. And now we just need to know how to use it and how to develop a stack that works for our goals.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there is, like I was saying earlier, there's so much software out there. Some of it does have overlapping functionality, but it's all targeted to different audiences. And so like the way it's presented, or the interface from a BTC Pay server, might be better for your use case if you're like a merchant that's trying to sell something in a store or whatever, compared to a person who wants to sort of be on the spending side, and maybe they want to use Ride the Lightning or something else. Or maybe they want to download an app on their phone and connect it remotely to their MyNode via VPN or Tor, and then cool, you can do that too, and you're out and about and you can spend money easily, right? Like there's all these different projects that really do have different users and different use cases in mind.
Cool. We've already got some cool questions popping into the chat too, which, by the way, for anyone watching, pop questions into our YouTube chat. We are actively monitoring that, and we'll try our best to get to them.
Real quick, Steven, before you ask that first one, I'll just touch on this. I think and it kind of goes with what Brian was saying, that one of the most satisfying feelings I feel like as a Bitcoin user is when you go from this feeling of, I'll never be able to do this. Like I'll never be able to like run my own node. Like number one, you have to realize that you can actually like connect your own node, or like what the functionality of your own node is. And once you do it, you're like, okay, cool. And then you try it out and you're like, holy shit, this is too hard for me. Sorry, CK. Then you're like, I'll never be able to do this. Like coming from a person that's not a computer science background or anyone else, just a normal person, like you're like, wow, this is really hard. And then you start to figure it out. I mean, like Dojo was what did it for me, and that took me a long time to figure it out, like a lot of just breaking things, and that's how I learned. And then I think it was actually Katan that suggested, I was talking to him, and he's the one that suggested like, oh, you should look at MyNode and like look at what they do. And that was when I was like, wow, this, and I booted one up. I just went for it, and uh, it was really, really cool. And it gives you that sense of, like, I can do this, like I can connect all my own stuff, I can transact privately, I can, be like, keep all of my own information without having to trust third parties to have all my xpubs or whatever. And it gives you that sense of power back, and that's important in Bitcoin. Like, I don't think people, they might not understand, like some people know and don't care, and that's their choice, that's totally cool. But for people that feel like I'll never be able to do it, there are so many, we're that's why we're doing this series, right? Like, there's so many people working on it, and you can do it. And you easily, you don't need that much experience or any experience to be able to have that freedom, to have that sense of privacy and power, to gain that stuff back. So I think it's really cool. And that, like I said, that's what kind of drew me into MyNode and to help over there. So yeah.
Yes.
very,
So
very
if I could, I'd like to share my experience with MyNode as well. So essentially, I found this. I don't know how I can't remember how I came across it, but I did, and I had to look into it, and I kind of decided, well, look, I came into this already knowing how to script all of these pieces of software together. So that was my experience. I already knew how to do this. And I understood that it took a lot of time. It took a lot of tinkering. It took a lot of, just learning. And it took forever. But it was rewarding. I'm not to say don't go down that path. Definitely do. But it takes time. And where I saw the value proposition in MyNode is that here is a guy who will literally, you just take an SD card, put it into a Raspberry Pi, and it just scripts everything up for you, ready to go in a way that has a nice user interface. And I was like, "Man, this is huge." I had never seen anything like this. So then I emailed Taylor. I gave him some feedback on what he could probably improve on, and then I started to get I asked more questions about his headspace just to make sure he wasn't doing anything, outside the realms of my values. So I just sort of questioned him. I questioned his premium model. I questioned how he would sort of what his long-term plans were and those sorts of things as well. I was really impressed with some of the feedback that I received. He answered all of my questions point for point. And so I suggested to him, hey, you might want to go onto the Stefan Livera podcast at this point, just to give it a bit of a bump. And I think that's when Taylor started to feel the pain of scaling. So
A good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have, and I kind of also felt sorry for him as well because he was probably swamped. It was just. So then I decided, you know what? So then I think Taylor put in a Telegram chat. So I think Stefan must have suggested to him, hey, you might want to look into building a Telegram chat. So he did that. We all jumped on, and then now that's at like 1,000 people at the moment. And throughout the Telegram chats, you can see common questions that are popping up. So what I decided to do was, okay, fine. Look, we're getting common questions. We're getting, hardware issues. We're getting this sort of, how do you do this? How does this all link through? That is when I decided that I would actually put this series together. And Taylor did not, sort of ask me to do this. I just thought, you know what, I'll just contribute and I'll say, look, here is the video. And there's this common now misconception that I'm some sort of representative of MyNode in an official capacity, and that's just not the case. It's just I recognize that there are people out there who don't necessarily have the time, like I do, to learn how to script things themselves. So here is, if you do your research, here is a trade-off that you may wish to consider. So here is a product that you might want to look into. So that's what I'm sort of doing with that series. I'm showing you how it's done. And yeah, that's kind of how I just went about my journey along MyNode. People are now sort of looking to those videos and hopefully they're seeing or realizing benefits to that. And it's not specific. Some of the stuff that I'm doing is not even MyNode related. Like I've got things on networks. and just how IPs work and how you might want to secure up your Wi-Fi password. Just general tips of how to become a little more self-sovereign, so that you don't have to, rely on some other party to, or not, I guess, lose your money, basically.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that I've just got in there that can help you out along the way.
That's cool. It's cool when you're such a power user of a software product that people start to think you're involved in the company.
Well, that's the common misconception. Like I'm a power user of all Bitcoin related software because I do it
Sure.
on my own node. I don't need Taylor's product. I don't use it, but I still paid for it because I can see the value in it. It's just, it's unbelievable what he has done. And so if you look at some of the other series, the other series that I've done with the Ubuntu box, I'm sitting there in command line. Like, I don't know how many people are going to do that, honestly, but people who want to learn how to flash an SD card and put it into a Raspberry Pi and turn it on, I think there's a bigger market for that. So I think it is a progressive journey as well. I fully
that story
encourage that.
It really illustrates too the power of community and grassroots in this stuff. Like Taylor, you said you started this project in just March last year, and it's come such a long way. And all that you just described, Kitan, kind of highlights like how much when you start simply with a powerful group of like passionate users behind you who can contribute, give ideas, and help build and provide content, this stuff can just really take off, and that's awesome to see.
Yeah, it really can. And yeah, you were right about Stefan mentioning the Telegram, and that was just a fantastic idea because, I've been trying to find different ways to scale because I can't help everybody one-on-one, but really that is where the community sort of has come in to help with some of the common problems or questions and issues, and helping people understand like what they're kind of really doing when they interact with certain projects. That's where Kitan's videos have been just invaluable in helping train people and onboard people and get them to understand like what MyNode is, but not just MyNode, also what all of the software projects on top of it are and how things do fit together logically. Because you need to have some understanding to really kind of get what a Lightning wallet is. Right now, like the user experience isn't just, it's not like PayPal or Venmo or whatever, something like that, right? You don't just like see a little number in your app and then you spend it or get more, right? You still have to understand about channels and managing your channels and receiving and spending. And there's still some concern that you need in technical understanding to be able to even use the projects. But that's where videos like his have really helped out. And also, you mentioned like you don't remember how you found it. I also was shocked that you found it when you did. I think it was you first emailed me maybe back in like, I don't know, was it September? It was like maybe late August or September of last year or something.
Yeah, September.
And so at that point, like, I worked on it for a while before even publicizing it. And I really probably didn't even offer a downloadable option until maybe July of last year. Like it might have been usable for an end user for maybe about a year at this point. I don't remember when I first like published that downloadable image, but it was like within, it might have been within like a month or month and a half or something. Kitan had already found it and sent me an email and got me talking with Stefan so that I could be on his podcast. And that really did help sort of like springboard everything and launch it to a much wider audience than I would have otherwise been able to have access to.
Very cool. And one thing that I think was mentioned in moments ago was kind of around like a different tier of support, like maybe like a premium offering. Can you kind of describe any different tiers or service levels that you have?
Yeah, sure. So I guess maybe let me start with what I kind of showed earlier, like that the device that you can purchase, you can buy one and then you'll get it mailed to you, and that's the easiest way. That's what I call the MyNode 1, and then it also includes premium. And so if you're a user that doesn't want to buy the device, like maybe you already have a Raspberry Pi, there's a lot of people out there that want to go just the software route. There's two options. You can absolutely for free, just download the community image and put it on your Raspberry Pi and get started playing around with it. And you have access to probably the majority of features actually. And then if you want and then that gives you access to like the community Telegram and like community support and things like that. But if you want premium support where you can like send me your debug logs or whatever, and I can help dig through them and figure things out or resolve any issues. There's a higher level, and that also includes access to several other software features that it will sort of unlock, and that's called MyNode Premium. And it costs $99, and you can go to mynodebtc.com, and then you can purchase it there with either PayPal or, of course, Bitcoin. And so you can pay with either of those options, and then you will just get like a product key or a license key or something. And then what's really cool is you can go from having the community edition. You just put in your premium key, and then it unlocks everything at that point, and you have access to it all. So you don't need to go like flash a new image on it or anything like that. You can get started totally for free with the community software. And then if you want to, if you don't want to, that's totally fine. But if you do want to, you can go purchase premium, and it's as easy as just entering a little key into the web user interface, and it will unlock things, and you'll have access to all of the different projects within MyNode.
Nice. And so that premium unlocking, those are kind of like separate apps. It's not like features within apps get unlocked in premium. It's like certain apps are kind of
exactly.
Premium.
It's just
the right way to think about it.
Right. Certain apps are just sort of will get unlocked, and you'll get a link to go access them once you put in the product key. And that's just to help like support my time and the time I spend, building the project and putting things together and getting all the different pieces and apps to integrate.
Good stuff.
I'm going to follow up on that. So, I guess prior to this point, right, prior to like the premium edition, Casa had like their node, like there was like plug and play options for nodes, right? Like Nodal, Casa. There's kind of like a weird exception that we won't get into, but most node options, and then you had like Raspberry Blitz, Raspberry Bolt. That was kind of like the guys. And a few other things that we had, right? But you were the first one to do this premium option. What kind of like led you in that direction? I know obviously you talked about wanting to pay for your, appreciate the time kind of thing without having to rely on donations and that kind of stuff. What kind of led you down that path, and what made you do that? Because I think that was a big step moving forward, and I really do think that is important, because like we talk about people spending Bitcoin and why it's important to spend Bitcoin, but you are offering a service to people, right? Especially with premium. And so I was just curious, like how you went down that path, what kind of made you have that decision, and then how has that been working out for you as far as like feedback and stuff like that? And then I'll add my other comments at the end, because I think it was pretty
cool. So I think that's a really good question. And I guess it came down to when I looked at some of the other solutions that were out there. Of course, there was like Raspberry Bolt and Raspberry Blitz, but I really felt that Casa had sort of caught on to something with their goal of making it very easy to use. It had like a web user interface, and in my opinion and in my experience working with various types of software projects, I just felt like it would be easier to have that like web-based sort of, not Casa. I didn't really copy Casa's web interface, and I've never actually owned one, but I think they did a really good job of sort of expanding the market and getting people to understand what this like running your own node was, and also enabling Lightning and some of these other projects on top of it. I think they did a good job with that. And so, but they also had a business model where like you had to pay yearly fees because I guess their larger business is really like multi-sig kind of stuff. And so I felt like it should be kind of sort of separate from that. And there was a market for something that was just more of run your own node kind of thing. And then when I started, I actually didn't know about, is it Nodal or Nodal? I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but however you pronounce it, they also only sold devices. So I felt like there was just this middle ground. And I thought, well, I don't want to have to sell a device to everybody. It just seemed like that would sort of like limit my reach. And so that's when I decided, okay, one, I'm going to open source it, because in this community, it seems like it just didn't seem write, or like the community would accept it if there wasn't an open source copy of it. So I absolutely wanted it to be open source. And so it seemed like that was just sort of a nice middle ground where I didn't have to ship a device to everyone who wanted to access it. And also it really opened it up and would sort of build a much better community, because I really needed a community around it of people that were interested and liked it, to be able to have the reach that I hoped to have. I didn't know what was going to happen, but to sort of scale in this world, you really do need a community of people who are passionate about it and want to help it succeed and share it with other people, because it is valuable and helpful to them, and they really do like the project and they use it every day. So I guess it was a trade-off, and it just seemed like there was sort of a niche where most people were on either you have to have quite a bit of technical expertise or you have to get a device shipped to you. And I just thought, well, maybe there's room for a middle ground there.
Very cool.
Nice.
Absolutely. And yeah, I brought it up because I think, and I probably started some of the arguments in there back in the day, but I think there was like a weird point with Bitcoin where a lot of people want to just hold and they don't want to pay. I mean, I know you could pay the premium in fiat, but I think that there's always been this middle ground, or this like area of Bitcoin where, because it's open source and because everyone's just trying to be altruistic and help the world, that they shouldn't offer like services that people can pay for. And I always thought that was really stupid, because one, like, people want this stuff. You should, like, they can do it. It's not like you're offering a service, which is a node launcher, like all these, like an app launcher, right? So why, and you could do it yourself, whether it's like literally using your open source code, like the community edition, or actually just learning the technical expertise and spending that time and learning how to set it all up. You could do that yourself, but you're offering a great service. So like, to me, I remember seeing people, and I argued on both sides. Like, I remember seeing people who were like, why do we have to pay $100 for, premium, like, to get these other apps? Like, this is stupid. And like, to me, I'm really happy that someone did this, like that you kind of open that door to the software, pay for software, because I think it's going to open the door for a lot of other, developers down the road. And that's important, because if you can't pay the bills, and if you're working, 2 jobs or whatever, or like you're working your day job and then you come home and you're spending, like, I know, like, if you're not the only developer, there's not that many other people working with you. If you're doing all of this essentially by yourself and continuously adding and doing all of the work, you're going to burn out. And one day you're just going to be like, you know what, I'm done. And so people need to understand that even if you don't need premium, there's value in just supporting the developers of the projects that you use, whether that's a donation on, like, for whoever, or if it's paying for a service that is going to end up going to that developer, so that you can continue to use that product that you love. Like, blew my mind that people even argued with that. So
well said,
Well
Joko.
said.
That was well said. Yeah.
That was very well said. Yeah. And I completely agree with it. But there are a couple people who might complain, like, oh, you've got to pay for something, just because they expect things to be everything in this sort of Bitcoin world to be free or open source or whatever. But they're actually a very, very tiny minority. Most people are incredibly supportive and just sort of, the community is fantastic. It's absolutely great. Most people are totally cool with it. And actually, I think they don't say it, but I think there are a lot of people who are very comfortable, like, with that, right? Like, you kind of do want to know that, like, there is someone out there who sort of has your back, and there is some support level out there that you can get, rather than just I don't know the best way to phrase it, maybe, but I think some people are sort of scared off by open source projects, especially if they're not developers, or if they're not used to dealing with open source projects. Like, it's Red Hat's entire business model, right? Like, they took something that was totally for free, and they were worth billions of dollars before they got bought, just in supporting open source software, right? Like, I mean, that was their thing. And it's, I think, a very new and maybe not brand new, but it's a relatively new and underappreciated market, I think, where there just is a support model on top of something that is open source and might exist for free. But a lot of people won't be comfortable, and companies won't want to go full on like Linux for their workstations unless they know there's someone backing them up and be able to support them if something goes wrong, because they don't have the, maybe it might not even be that they don't have the expertise, but they don't want to hire the full-time staff to go manage it or maintain it. They want to have a support contract with someone. And I think that's attractive to a lot of end users and like business to business kind of models.
Yeah. Can I add something too? It's wider. We don't have to do it in tonight's meetup, but I think there's a good conversation to be had, and I'd like to hear more people talk about it, of the relationship, like how to be a good user of open source software. Like, what's the process? What format of feedback do open source developers want the feedback in? Because sometimes I've encountered frustrating encounters with open source devs where they kind of, you know, might be having a bad day or whatever, and almost say like, you know what, don't even use it. Like and that's obviously coming from a place of just complete frustration, which is warranted, because it's probably it's either a bad day or a bad week or whatever. And they don't have a product marketing team or marketing team or anyone else, and there's no one else on the other end of the emails. So you can only take so many bad, annoying, complaining emails. But not every user is, like trying to come at this thing from like, oh yeah, I got to give, Taylor another hard time. And I've never seen you do this, and I'm not even talking about anything in specific, but I do think it's a good conversation that can be had more often about just what format should feedback be in, and how can we be good users of open source software.
Yeah, I agree, but +1 to that from me. Okay, we got a lot of awesome questions coming into the chat here. Let's hit a couple. One that might be a quick one is pretty specific. So Rexy asks, in terms of your Electrum server implementation, are you using Electrum X, Electrum Personal Server, Electrum Rust? What did you select and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I chose the Electrum Rust server. It just seemed like it was the best balance of user experience plus being able to run efficiently on a small Raspberry Pi-like device. In my early testing, it might be different now, but in my early testing, it seemed a little bit faster than Electrum X. And Electrum Personal Server is a cool project, but it doesn't have the best user experience, especially with people who are newer, having to like take their Xpubs and go put it into the app and understand all that. So that's good for some people, but it's not good for sort of a broad audience. And I wanted to be able to abstract that away and sort of help make it easier for people.
Nice. All right. Yeah, we're going to rapid fire through these questions. Alex Thorne asks, long term, how do you think the hardware node device market will evolve? Will nodes stand alone as Bitcoin only? Will they expand to non-crypto services? Will network routers add node software?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question too. And like Ketan had mentioned, I think it would be really cool if routers added it eventually. I don't know if they will in the short term, but there might be a market for like a more versatile node plus other things. And I guess in a sense, maybe that's what MyNode is already a little bit, because it does have some other features like Tor and VPN access. So you can use the VPN access from your phone back to your home for anything. It doesn't have to be accessing your Bitcoin wallet, but in that sense, like there are other things that just make it useful, like the Tor remote connections and things like that, that aren't exactly Bitcoin specific, but are like semi-related. And those are definitely popular projects that were added onto MyNode.
Yeah. How hard would it be to add an email server into the node also? Very hard.
So I think and I mean, running an email server, like just running the software, I think is pretty easy, but like, because of like the amount of spam that happened, I think most home internet connections like block all ports related to anything email. And so it would be a very difficult thing to add.
Right. Okay. So stick on that. So Altcoin Daily asks, is running a full node, like, does it use up a lot of internet?
Yeah, it does. I haven't measured exactly, but I mean, the blockchain itself is like 300 gigs of data. So you're going to be downloading and sharing blockchain information with people. So it uses quite a bit, but during the IBD period, it's definitely going to use the most.
So what does IBD stand for?
Initial blockchain download. Like it's when you're syncing from scratch, basically.
Mm-hmm. So then after that initial blockchain download, then from a day-to-day mode, if it is using up a lot of internet, are there settings that users can do to limit the amount of that, or they just have to have everybody in their family kind of adjust to it, or sign up for more internet, or what can they do?
Yeah, so you can adjust it. I don't think Lightning uses a whole lot of data. I know Bitcoin will, but there are ways. MyNode defaults to I think 1 gig of data per day by default, but you can go in and customize the settings by customizing the Bitcoin config. That's not the easiest thing for a new user. I don't have a nice setting in the settings area where you can control those, but you can go customize the Bitcoin config.
So something I did with MyNode was I have a Casa. And part of the reason why I'm doing the series is because I want to know which one to get next. And so that's part of why I'm doing the series. One thing that it let me do was I limited other nodes pulling from mine. I disallowed inbound connections.
Mm-hmm.
And does that seem like something that would help?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would help a lot. I think you probably still would share with the other outbound connections that you have, but you're going to share a whole lot less. It's not like you're going to be constantly sharing with new connections of people who are trying to do their own blockchain download or sync from scratch kind of thing. So yeah, it would help a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Also, I think over through Tor as well. So when you push it through Tor, it does slow it down in terms of the data that goes through the pipe, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So and MyNode defaults to run Bitcoin Core via Tor. So I think that helps in just the speed, so you're not choking the internet connection so hard.
Good. Danny asks, this is a good one. I like this one. So I bought the premium and I've had everything set up for a while now. I don't quite understand the Lightning Network part of it yet, how it earns sats on the transactions. Can you tell us how to find out more about that?
Maybe some other people would have better suggestions about learning. Well, first of all, you're not going to make a lot of money running a Lightning node. I wouldn't go into running Lightning expecting to earn anything ever. It's mostly for spending and saving on transaction fees by getting some of those transactions off chain. You're going to save money that way, but the earning money part of Lightning is it's pretty detailed, and it takes a lot of knowledge and tweaking and maintaining channels in good proportions with popular users to ever be able to make anything via routing fees.
Yeah, so if you want to find more information on that, head on over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ministry of Nodes. I've got the MyNode series, the Lightning Network. I've got 2 videos on there. There's the understanding the theory, and then there's the practical application side. So if you want to understand the theory around this sort of stuff and more about Lightning Network, head on over to the YouTube channel, and I've got all of that sort of covered for you at a basic level. It's not to make, again, as Taylor said, it's not to make a profit, but it's just to get you into stepping into the right direction.
Good stuff.
Why am I'm blanking on his name right now live. He was just on, who's the main lightning routing guy from LND who does all the good talks on it too?
Alex Bosworth.
Yeah, so that's the other name to Google is Alex Bosworth in relation to lightning routing.
Yeah, I remember being very excited when I heard the notion of lightning routing. So I was like, great, I can monetize my internet connection and get paid to route stuff through. And in theory, yes, but the effort required and the understanding and then the amount you actually make is not quite what I was hoping for. Question, as far as somebody who is probably in a typical place for beginners where maybe they bought on an exchange and they withdrew their Bitcoin and now they've got that stored on a hardware wallet like a Trezor or a Ledger. And so now they control their own keys, and that's great. And they're looking into their first full node. And so they decide to go with MyNode and they get it all set up. What's the interface like as far as hardware wallet compatibility and support? How do you stitch that together? Do they just plug it into their laptop and use a client? How does that work?
Well, so once again, I think Catan has some great videos on this, but it depends on the software for the hardware wallet. I believe most of them let you configure an Electrum server. And so I think that's the sort of the easiest route for some of the hardware wallet vendors to go, where within their software, they will let you point at the Bitcoin node that you want to use through an Electrum interface. And so you would just configure in their user interface, however you do it, which depending on which hardware wallet you're using, you would just go find the settings for like what node do you want to connect to, and you would put in your MyNode information there,
Nice.
which would typically be like mynode.local colon like 5,000 or 50,002, I think is the default secure port for Electrum.
Makes sense. So once they get their MyNode stack up, then it's just a matter of plugging that address into the software for Trezor, Ledger, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got a question, and this comes from where did I put it? Oh, okay, so this comes from Evan Claudus. I don't know if I said his name right, but the guy from Zeus.
Yeah.
He said, so you offer the premium like Tor services that you kind of mentioned. How does it work? And like, so like all those features, like how does it work with like Tor? Does everything route through Tor when you have that premium service and they're all going? And then he also said, does L&D Hub get set up over Tor when you're getting that premium?
So yeah, so that's a really good question. First of all, MyNode Community Edition still has Bitcoin and LND run via Tor. So premium, you don't have to pay premium to be able to have Bitcoin and Lightning running via Tor. They always run that way. There is a toggle in the settings in all editions if you want to run it via your like plain IP address or route normally, and use the internet in the sort of the typical way, I guess. The premium allows you remote Tor access for each of the services. And so that's when you have like a Tor or an Onion URL that will give you access to like the web UI or to SSH or to Ride the Lightning or all these other apps that are on MyNode. You'll get sort of an individual URL to access each of them on the port that that app is running on. And yes, L&D Hub does run over Tor, although I don't know if I ever got it to connect, to get Blue Wallet to connect over Tor. I haven't tried in a long time. At one point I thought I got it to work, but I don't know if it really was working. If anybody gets it to work, let me know, and that would be fantastic. But yeah, L&D Hub, it does have an Onion URL, but I don't know if connecting Blue Wallet has worked before.
Yeah, and for people that don't understand like why it's important to have all, or why you see that in almost all of the node implementations, is that one, like it's obviously more private, your IP is not exposed, and then also with your IP not being exposed, you don't have to do port forwards, you don't have to configure your router, you don't have to mess with any of that stuff. So, and that's like one of the bigger things. Obviously, like you always want to try to support the Tor network, and it allows you to connect from anywhere, so you can be mobile. And if you have it, you're able to configure through Tor. You know, you don't need to have any connection back to your home network in order to access that information. But the big part is not having to open any ports or do anything else. So I feel like that makes life a lot easier from a user perspective. So just for anyone that's like wondering that. Brian, if you have any other questions.
That's a great explanation of Tor. It absolutely doesn't have to be complicated. It makes connecting to it easier. Like I thought it was going to make it harder, and it doesn't. It makes it better. Okay, here's a few from Hetty Wook. He was wondering, is Bisq one of the apps that MyNode supports?
I mean, Bisq is not built into MyNode, but I believe you can like run Bisq as a standalone app and then have it refer to your MyNode as like the copy of the blockchain that it wants to use. So like it's not something that's running on it, but I believe the settings within Bisq will let you, kind of like the hardware wallets will have their own app where you can reference your node. I believe Bisq is the same way.
Perfect. Yeah, we heard that same answer last time. That sounds good. And then kind of a few more questions just on routing. Like for both of you, Catan and Taylor, are you comfortable sharing how many channels you have open and just what an average number is for people?
I don't know what an average number is for people. Honestly, I'm sort of bad at running Lightning. I mostly open channels for testing and then end up closing them. And I don't leave them open like for a super long time because I end up like resetting one of my devices or whatever. And so I'm not like the best Lightning node owner ever, but I would guess that most people probably have like a handful. I don't think many people have 10, 20, 30, 40 channels open. I think that's a very tiny percentage of users. Most people will open a couple like common popular Lightning nodes, and then they will just spend what they want to from there.
If you want to know how many I have 20 on the Ministry of Nodes Lightning Network node. But that's because people view the video and then they'll give me inbound capacity. So that works for me. So yeah, that's why I have the majority of the channels that I do.
Cool. Can you guys share anything more you think about just like a Lightning circular economy and what services, are you able to identify certain types of services that are benefiting from this, or are leaders in this?
I think a lot of things eventually will accept Lightning. I think it'll get more common sort of as time goes on, but I think like there are some really kind of interesting business models where like maybe you pay per article you read, like a handful of sats, or like, I don't know, a quarter or something to read an article, which I would prefer that over like signing up for a monthly subscription for some news website or something like that. So I think somebody might have termed it like the velocity of money at one point, but it opens up new business models where you like pay per use. And I think once more people understand Lightning and the capabilities that exist out there, we'll see some interesting business models. But other than that, I think it's helpful for like just small expenses. And especially with something like MyNode, it's cool when you have like a Lightning wallet on your phone. And if you're like out and about doing something, you can connect to it via Tor back to the node that's in your house, which is really where like the wallet and the LND instance is. But you can still be walking around, and you can scan a QR code here and there and pay for whatever you want to pay for. But I think it's going to be for like maybe smaller purchases. But I think it's also really going to get more popular, one, as people get more familiar with it, and two, once it's a little bit easier to do some of like the loop in and loop out kind of stuff, where like maybe you really could treat it like a checking account. If you have a little bit of like Bitcoin income coming in every month, you just have some of it automatically apply to one of your Lightning channels to refill it, and you can spend easier. Because I think right now there is some difficulty still in managing your channels and making sure you have like outbound capacity, and like what happens when you run out, you've got to refill it somehow. So I think I think we've definitely made I'm not involved in Lightning development, but I think good progress has been made, and it's going to continue getting better over the next couple of years.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping that in a few years from now, we're like looking back and chuckling at the time when people had to understand what channels were to like be successful with the Lightning Network.
Right.
Yeah, abstracted away through software.
At some point, I'm hoping to see another potential use case, as Taylor was mentioning, with like payments, the small, you can pay per use. But I'm also interested to see getting streamed packets of packets of money for your goods, for services. So say, for example, you're on the clock from this hour to this hour, so you turn on the faucet for this, and money just comes into your node, and then when you clock off, you turn off, and you get paid now daily instead of the fortnightly or monthly or whatever else. So I'm excited about that potential use case. I don't know. Maybe that's something that we can look into. But that's really it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that as well. The whole like micropayments and streaming payments unlocks some super interesting use cases. Talking a little bit more about the MyNode software stack more broadly, you all have a ton of apps that you support and include, obviously. How do updates work and kind of maintenance on that? Is it like a monolithic update process to a new image, or is it sort of app by app? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There are a couple different ways to upgrade. So first of all, let me mention something about the design that I don't think a lot of people understand, and I really need to find a better way to publicize it. But the SD card itself has the operating system and most of the apps on it, but the data, like for the blockchain and Lightning wallets and things like that, that's all stored on the solid or the hard drive or solid state drive that's attached to it. So one way to upgrade is actually to just pull the SD card out, flash a new image on it, and put it back in. And your state will be almost the exact same as it was before. And so that's also a good way to recover in case anything happens and an upgrade fails or something bad goes wrong. I mean, SD cards are sort of notoriously like not a fantastic storage medium for running an operating system. Like that, things can happen, they can get corrupted, whatever. But it was designed so that in case anything does happen, you can sort of revert relatively easily by just reflashing that image and then reattempting an upgrade if you wanted to get to the latest. But in the community edition, you can obviously always like flash your own SD card with whatever is available on the website. You can also upgrade manually via some CLI commands that I've published on the GitHub page. And then with Premium, there's also like a one-click update button. And so it'll tell you when a new update is available. You can go to the settings page and click update, and then it will start running the update script that is sort of the core piece of an upgrade. However, like sometimes that doesn't work perfectly because basically what happens there, and I want to say it works like 99, 98%, I don't know, a huge percentage of the time. However, it does go contact like the Debian servers for downloading new packages. So, and it'll contact like the GitHub servers for downloading each of the applications, right? So there's a lot of like internet connectivity that's going on during that upgrade because it's going and downloading the new app images. And so if there's any sort of like internet outage or that server's down or whatever, an upgrade can sort of fail in the sense that it couldn't go download that package. And in that case, what happens is the web GUI warns you. It says, something didn't go right, and it gives you a button to retry. So the direction I kind of want to go is like, if an upgrade fails, it's not that scary. Like it does happen sometimes, but there's always a backup plan to reflash your SD card, and you can always retry the upgrade and reattempt it. And if you have any other problems, it'll tell you exactly what happened during the upgrade failure. You can send that to me and I can take a look at it and always let you know kind of what happened. And so there's a lot of different options, and it was designed to be sort of robust in that if there is any sort of failure, you always have backup options and you have a number of options for upgrading.
Nice. That seems pretty thoughtfully different options there. Speaking of the SD card and kind of that hardware component where like the data is separated from the apps and whatnot, I guess private keys would be stored on the device, on the SD card as well, or not?
So I guess the app that people use the most that has a secure like element to it would be LND or the Lightning wallet. And, that is not, now there's a password to unlock the wallet that is stored on the device. But to like recover it, you of course need your seed phrase, and you need the seed phrase written down. But then there's also the static channel backup file. And for that file, I actually store redundant copies, one on the SD card and one on the hard drive. So that way, in case there is a failure, some of the critical data and critical settings are all backed up and stored on both. So there are redundant copies in case either one of the SD card or the device fails. There should be a way to always get back to the static channel backup file, as well as some of the other like settings files and certain critical things that would just make like quality of life easier. If there was a failure, it'll automatically go copy those over if it notices there's a copy on one side or the other, but not on both.
Nice. That's comforting. Like minimal risk of loss of funds. Very cool. Any plan, like as far as the next year, what do you guys have planned, or next 6 months in terms of like roadmap or future apps that you want to support? Is there anything that you want to mention there?
Well, there's an update that I have not pushed yet, but it's got a number of different things. One is it uses a lot more Tor connections for like connecting back to mynodebtc.com for upgrades and things like that. It'll use Tor for more of those connections, just for even more like increased privacy on the device. And then LNbits is coming. I probably want to like maybe do some updates where more things are enabled via HTTPS. That's another difficult challenge when you're trying to use like HTTPS on a local network, most browsers throw up these big warnings and say, oh, it's super scary, something terrible's going on. But in reality, that's not the case. You're on your own network. Like you can have a secure connection locally, but I maybe do some enhancements there. But really, I think the primary things are just going to be continuing to make things like more stable and easier to use via like guides and adding more just sort of like quality of life kind of things within the user interface and stuff like that. So right now, I think I've gotten a lot of apps put into MyNode. So right now, I'm more focused on like guides and helping people in understanding and like back end quality of life kind of things.
Very cool. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Zelko, did you have something you were wanting to ask too?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask about the so with the, I guess the seed, well, the private keys and whatnot for LND are on the SSD. Plus, you have the you said the redundant backup file, right? The channel backup file. Do you do anything for the SSD as far as like encryption or anything? Because I mean, granted, most people probably don't have a ton of money stored on the private keys for Lightning, right?
Right.
But is there any sort of like, that was one thing that like Nodal was like all about, is there like security encryption, and obviously like they have a RAID backup on their second device and a kill switch and all sorts of crazy stuff. But do you guys do you have like any like Luke's encryption or anything like that as far as encrypting the SSD or the hard drive?
No, I mean, unless there definitely could be something I'm not aware of, but like if you encrypted the hard drive, it seems like someone still has to put in a password to unlock it, which sort of like to me kind of seems like it defeats the purpose a little bit, because you want this running 24/7. So if after a power outage or upgrade or something, you had to like manually enter more passwords, which would just make it like sit there in an unencrypted state, I don't see all of the value in sort of trying to run an encrypted or run with an encrypted solid state drive or hard drive. So maybe there's options out there, and I'm if anybody has information, let me know. But it seems like that adds a lot of like logistical headaches, and you're not actually getting all the security that you think you're getting, because you still have another password that has to be like entered and managed, and people have to remember it, and it would potentially impact like the amount of uptime that you end up having. So
No,
I don't know, but if people have more information, I'm definitely willing to consider that and look at whatever they have.
Yeah,
So my understanding is that I think the only private key for funds that are stored on the device would be for LND. So with that, and this is something that I specifically call out in the videos, is don't put on Lightning more than you are willing to lose. It is in a very like it's an alpha grade software state. It's by no means complete. It's by no means you should be putting large sums of money on there. So if you're putting in your life savings, you are doing it wrong. Get that out immediately.
Yes,
that is completely reckless. Do not do that. It is for small value payments. Like a night out. That's it. So you shouldn't be, that private key that's stored on there, keep it very, very minimal value.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess the way I've always kind of looked at it, for most users at least, is like it would be the cash you carry in your wallet, right? Like it would suck to lose it, but at the same time, like it's not any sort of savings account or even a checking account. I consider it more of like even sort of sub checking account level, maybe more like cash in your wallet kind of level. And that's all I would ever consider sort of putting in. Maybe in between a checking account and what you have in your wallet or something like that. But it's not anything I would put life savings in or even significant savings in whatsoever. Very small amounts of money.
Sage advice, I think.
I think all that's great advice, and I think I don't even come at that from like a security standpoint. I just come at it from a budgeting standpoint. I mean, it's both. But I think I want to hear from other Bitcoin users. I'm just kind of saying this to like everybody listening. Like, I think we should talk more about Bitcoin budgeting and just day to day. Like, how does this look in the new world? I think that would help a lot of users.
Because I mean, all of the good advice is use a hardware wallet, right? Because it's not connected to the internet and it's not your PC, right? And that's a fantastic suggestion for any sort of savings. Where a Lightning wallet is the opposite. A Lightning wallet, to be useful, has to be online and connected to the internet. So it's a very sort of different security model than any sort of like Bitcoin savings would be with hardware wallets.
Yeah, I would take it even a step further. I don't like hardware wallets outside of a multi-sig. I would never use a single hardware wallet as my savings account. But this is why it's such a good conversation. This is why it's because we should hear from all users about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like no one size fits all, just like trade-offs different ways. Yeah. One other really good question from Altcoin Daily was, is running a full node sort of like set it up and leave it type of thing? Or, does it require a lot of maintenance and babysitting, so to speak? And how much generally?
I mean, no, if you get it like set up and running and you don't care about upgrade. Now, a lot of people upgrade all the time to like get the latest apps, and then like that would require a little bit more maintenance if you're upgrading all the time and just making sure that everything is working great and you're using the cutting edge features, right? Like there's a little bit more risk there because you're constantly doing updates and you're constantly using brand new features. But if it depends on your use. If you just want this to sort of be an Electrum server for wallets that you open every once in a while, there's like almost no maintenance. You would just set it up and let it sit in your corner, and like you don't even have to think about it. I mean, kind of like most people don't think about their router, like Katan had mentioned earlier. Like it would be like that, but it really depends on your use case.
Makes sense. Good to hear. And then question around just not hardware, but mobile wallet compatibility. So you've got your MyNode full node running. Are there specific mobile wallets for people who are out and about, like spending day to day, where they want to interface with their full node that you all support or even recommend?
I mean, I don't really want to make specific recommendations, but there's a bunch out there that do work. I mean, obviously, like Blue Wallet works, Zap works, Zeus works. I know I've used those three as like sort of test wallets on my Android phone. I mean, I think those are all definitely good options. But like, I think was it Brian earlier was saying, like, try them all, like see what works best for you, see which one you like the most with the various interfaces and the ways to manage channels. And like, sometimes it just comes back to sort of personal feel, and you've just got to try a couple until you find one that really seems to click with you.
So then for the on-chain side, so I've never run an Electrum server. So the Electrum server is the main, that's in place of like core. Do I have that right? And then you have to choose a wallet. If you're looking for an on-chain wallet, it has to be compatible with Electrum, or did I fully butcher that?
It actually doesn't have to be compatible with Electrum. What is the one? Fully Noted, I think, doesn't use Electrum, but it's an on-chain wallet. That one though is a little. It ends up creating another file on your MyNode that then is like a security, not a concern, but it's another thing that you have to sort of know that you're doing. You end up creating a wallet.dat file in the Bitcoin directory, which since I don't like manage that or publicize it really as a feature, you just kind of have to know that wallet ends up creating another file that you would want to back up. But for like an on-chain wallet, yeah, you could use Electrum on your phone or Electrum on your PC or whatever. But then LND wallets also have an on-chain component, but that goes through the LND like RPC interface that is letting you connect between your LND wallet on your phone or your computer, wherever it is, and the Lightning, like the Lightning RPC interface on MyNode. And then it has it has an internal path to go get to the Bitcoin blockchain. So you don't have to worry about connecting Electrum if you're only going to use a Lightning wallet.
Cool.
Makes sense. Curious how you guys see adoption of Lightning generally. I feel like at one point there was a ton of emphasis on it, and now maybe because on-chain has become cheaper since 2017, there hasn't been as much. And I know the caps are still in place for like channel capacity on Lightning. Mm-hmm. In general, when you think about where it's at, is it like about where you expected or not quite as far further ahead?
So personally, I don't know if I had any like very specific expectations. I know it has been growing, but you're right. I think maybe it's not talked about as much because on-chain fees have gotten so low and we're not seeing huge price increases like we were a couple of years ago. So maybe some of the emphasis has like been taken off of it, but I still think it's growing at like a very, very fast rate. And I do like seeing more and more people adopt Lightning and start using it.
Very cool. We got about, a few more minutes here. Would just kind of love to hear from you in general, like why is running a node important? Why might people want to think about doing that? And why they might want to consider MyNode for that.
Okay, yeah. So I think MyNode offers a couple advantages to people. And it does all start with the Bitcoin blockchain, like I had mentioned earlier, because that provides a foundation. And some people want it just for, they would want to use MyNode just for the Bitcoin blockchain so that they have their own like trusted blockchain and they're not using a public Electrum server. But I really think the majority of the value comes in the next layers that get built on top of that with the Electrum server and with Lightning and with the various apps that that are on MyNode that interact with Lightning or mixing or just all kinds of different things. And so really my initial goal was to just take all those like software projects that are out there and be able to make them accessible to people that would have a difficult time setting it up on their own, because there's a lot of complexity there. There's a lot of different interfaces. There's a lot of knowledge of certificates and different like RPC interfaces between the various applications and opening ports and all that stuff, and then setting up Tor services. There's just so much there that I don't think most people, I don't want to say they don't have the skill to do it, but a lot of people don't have the time to do it. They don't want to have to spend hours a day messing with their own little device and tinkering with it and putting it all together and getting frustrated, right? They want a solution that lets them build on top of it or really take advantage of the use cases that it provides and not having to maintain it themselves. And so I think that's really where most of the value is. It's starting with Bitcoin, building on top of that with the goal of giving access to all of these just absolutely amazing software projects that people might not otherwise have access to.
Yep.
System is better because MyNode exists, because you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
So
yeah,
cool.
No, this has been awesome, man.
Yeah, super informative. We had a ton of questions. I think we hit most of the questions in the chat. So we can go ahead and kind of wrap things here, but a few notes as we close. Thank you to, well, first of all, shout out to Bitcoin Magazine, best publication in the game, for helping us get the word out and market these events. Very much appreciated. Shout out to the other OC Bitcoin members, especially Heddywook, who has been behind the scenes helping do a lot of heavy lifting for these events and surface some questions for us. And then, yeah, check out Ministry of Nodes if you want to learn about how to run nodes and be successful with them. And check out MyNode. I know actually after this, I am going to order MyNode. I haven't been hands-on with it, but I'm going to get one set up at home too.
Great.
So looking forward to learning more about it. Cool. And our YouTube channel that hopefully most of you are seeing this on is new. Hit subscribe if you like this kind of content. DM me, DM Brian, any of us, or tweet at us if you have stuff that you want to see in future events. Zelko as well. I don't know if your DMs are open, but yeah, we want to make these just useful and practical to help people really understand and like make this accessible to everybody. So hit us up with any feedback. We appreciate it. And if you're in Southern California, let us know. We'll be doing stuff in person soon too.
Yep.
And that's a wrap. Thanks.
A digital currency in which transactions can be performed without the need for a central bank.
All right, Jared, we come to you.
What is Ripple?
Woody was a Bitcoin. Yeah. Yes.
In 350 BCE, Aristotle defined sound money
separable, transferable, divisible,